So anyway, so yes, it says we are live, and I think we are live right now. Okay, so Suresh, we are
This is my
live.
yo moment. This is my yo
Yeah,
moment.
we are not only live, we are alive. we are we are alive.
Correct, absolutely.
We are two live.
Two A life, 2A life. The English and
Two,
algebra rolled into one.
no. Suresh, think bigger. Why not a square live? So why two
Absolutely.
a? So a square will be better than two a.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone to yet another edition of our Value Additions, the show where we bring you professional tips to grow your business. I've actually lost track whether this is the fifth one, sixth one, or the seventh one, but the numbers don't matter. And we'll have somebody else in the studio later on who will actually tell us that the numbers do matter. Okay, so I should probably take that back. Anyway, Suresh, yes, good to see you, Suresh. Yeah.
Absolutely, Sandeep. So we are in the nth episode of our Value Additions, and today is all about you and me, right? Next 30 minutes we'll talk about us only.
No.
Sorry. Because today's topic here, Sandeep, about brand building, I thought when we looked into it, and when I looked at it from an SME perspective or entrepreneur perspective, it was always I grew up saying that brand is for the corporates. That the corporate guys will have brands. I mean, SME entrepreneur talking of brand. I mean, paisa zyada ho gaya kya kind of thing, Then you realize so many different aspects of brand building, and here is this guy, the one man himself, the National Institute of Design alumni, who actually is changing the landscape of SMEs, and he is going to speak about the relevance of brand to today in a very, I'm sure, revealing, refreshing kind of conversation that we're looking forward to today. And he is none other than, and Sandeep will open the curtain.
Yo. Say hello. Say hello to Mr. WW. Say hello to Mr. Yeah, say hello to Mr. www.roy.studio. Okay.
Hello to the studio. Hello to the www. Hello to Saurav. No, hello to Roy. That's what he wants to be known as. Roy.
Yes.
Roy, hi, it's a pleasure to have you on board. It's a wonderful human being you are. We have spoken through silence so many times. It's not that we need to only chat. Silence is a great communicator. That's how I always relate to my conversation with Roy, Sandeep. So I was just telling Sandeep before he opened the curtain, and he didn't allow me to go full honk because he was worried that I'll take 10 minutes of this show and then 28 minutes and 8 minutes. So he opened the curtain. So there you are. So we are speaking about, Roy, that brand building, and in an SME forum, we are talking about professional tips to SMEs and entrepreneurs who are watching our show. And we're talking about brand, which is usually related to corporates. And here is brand and all that goes around brand going to an audience which is SME and entrepreneurs. Does it make sense? Brand and SMEs, Roy?
Yeah, I mean, it in fact makes even more sense for SMEs than corporates. And I think the key thing is for SMEs to understand that branding is not marketing. It is, in a sense, it is your reputation. It is what you build as your equity and your value. And your business might have an X amount of your value, but your brand can actually have 10x the amount of value. So if you're obviously, delivering a great product or a great service, then you need to be able to sort of create it in sort of a brand as well, and that has tremendous amount of value over a period of time going ahead.
Okay, so tell me, Sandeep, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was also thinking about this. A lot of times, MSMEs, we don't really think in terms of branding as an investment. We always have this thing that branding is an expense. So you typically, like you rightly said, people slot branding and marketing in the same basket, and it's an expense, kharcha. So there's no return. You did some marketing, and that's just about it. You don't realize that probably that if done sensibly, it can actually give value. Tell us, Roy, and I'm sure you have some slides and some tips. But before we go to that, just tell us what is it that SMEs should actually, what steps, what benefits they can get, tangible benefits that they can get maybe in the long run, and B, what exactly can they do, in terms of, we say branding, but what does that mean?
So I think it's important to understand that as a SME, for example, though you might not be engaged in a structured branding program, but whether you know it or not, you are a brand. If you've been in the market, you have a certain customer base, you are dealing with your customers in a certain manner, and you have a certain reputation in the market, that is what a brand is. A branding program essentially is just a structured way for you to do this. So even, for example,
Right.
if you look at the tapri guy, the chai wala on the corner, the chai
Uh-huh.
wala on the corner is also a brand as well. Now he might not have a fancy logo or a storefront, but that
Right.
chai wala stands for something, right? Because you know that you'll get the best chai over there. He has friendly conversation. This is a place where I want to go there. There's a certain association that you have with that product or service, and that is really what a brand is. So for an SME to really understand that, all that you're trying to do is manage this association in a structured form.
Right. And also,
Right.
isn't it, Roy, that Sandeep, go ahead.
No,
After you.
no, please.
Yeah.
I
So I
was
think,
going. I was going to say that going by what Roy said, it just suddenly I realized that our tapri chaiwala is actually, the typical what abroad is in the foreign countries known as the water cooler movement. So that's what our tapri chaiwala is. So that
Exactly.
itself is a big branding issue. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Suresh.
so I'm hearing that for the first time, water cooler moment, Sandeep. I'll talk to you about it offline.
Ah, really? Seriously? Okay. Yeah, Roy got
Okay.
that.
Okay, absolutely. You guys are the brand guys, man. I'm the sales guy. So talking of sales, Roy.
Yeah.
So brand, as I work with so many SMEs across India's landscape, brand has got several connotations. One is the legal connotation of doing it right, of not having legal overlaps. The other is the sales connotation. Karne se dhanda bad jayega. I can get
Yep.
eyeballs. The other is from the point of view of marketing and also brand valuation and value, which
Yeah.
today in these uncertain times is also an asset class, which has suddenly
Yeah.
become more important. So there are so many aspects to brand, right? Right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, sales ultimately boils down to persuasion. You are really sort of persuading someone to buy your product and a service. A brand allows you to create a better reputation, which allows you to create better tools and resources for you to be able to sell better. And I think the important thing is, given the current situation with the pandemic and the lockdown, it's become even more critical now for SMEs to look at branding itself, because this is really a time when businesses have to be able to reinvent themselves and not just protect but thrive in the in the new
Absolutely.
environment. And in order to do this, you have to sort of think about who you are as a company, what makes you different, what is a differentiated product that you're able to give to your customer, what is the value that you're giving to society, and all of this essentially stems from a structured branding program.
Fantastic.
Right.
So as
Yeah.
important as
Okay.
registering a company
So
or having a logo.
yeah.
Sorry, Sandeep. I'm saying as
No.
important as registering a company and having a logo and
Yeah.
getting those nuances ready. Probably
Yeah.
you're suggesting that brand building also need to start that early. Like
Correct. So the logo is, one part of the branding exercise. So logo
right.
is not really a brand. A logo is a component of your brand. Similarly, your sales tools are a component of your branding program. These are all different separate components. The brand essentially is the sum of all of these.
Yeah.
Understand.
Okay, so let's not waste any more time, and we will talk about this a little more. Let's go to the tips that Roy has got for the rest of us. Okay, so Roy, I'll just bring this up on
Yeah,
screen.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Okay, that should be it. Yeah.
So I think the first tip really is for, at whichever stage that you're in, whether you're an early startup, whether you're looking at reinventing your business. And the first tip is really for you to understand that, what really is your reputation. And this is what happens a lot of times to most businesses, that, we are conducting a business in a certain manner. We are buying products, selling products, consuming services in a certain way. Uh, but I think one of the critical things is a lot of businesses don't really know why do customers buy from them. And I think it's an important thing to find out, because a lot of times we assume that a customer is purchasing from you because you're probably the cheapest in the market. The actual reason might surprise you. So
Very
the
well
first
said. Yeah.
thing is to understand that your brand is also your reputation, and your reputation stems not just from customers who are purchasing from you, but also from your employees. In fact, I would argue further that if you have to grow as a business, your employees are your first stakeholders. The way they
Right.
perceive your brand is even more critical. You as a business owner are not going to be there for every sales call. You are not going to be
Yep.
there for every deal, right? It's your
Yep.
employees who are going to be there, and you have to make sure that they understand, on what basis have you built the company, and those get answered. So the tip really is to say that, these are three simple ways. Speak to the customer who made his or her first purchase. and really understand why did they make that decision. Was it price? Was it quality? Was it a better sales? Was it something else altogether? The second is to speak to a repeat customer on why do they continue to purchase from you. Is it ease of use? And that's where I think you'll start to find out, what is it that makes you different from others. And the third is speak to your highest performing employee on what motivates them. Are they, and I think a lot of times in my experience, I found out that motivation is not necessarily monetary. Your highest performing employees are not the people who say that, we are performing our best because we are getting the most amount of salary. If that was the case, they would have jumped jobs immediately. Most likely they are staying back and performing well because they believe in something, and it's important to find that out as well. So all of this
leads to the fact that brand probably has got two sides. One is the outward looking side and the inward looking side. Both are as
absolutely.
Yeah, so brand is not just what a company does, to the outside world. It's also what it does or doesn't do internally as well. A lot of companies don't realize that, So that's very, very sad. But that's really, very deep and really great.
So
Thanks for pointing.
That's what I was saying that it's not. This is where the difference starts coming out. That branding is not marketing. In marketing, you're not going to be really so concerned about what your employees are thinking, right? It's more outward focused.
Right.
Whereas in branding, you're really focused on looking at and saying that okay, what are my employees thinking about me? How am I getting them motivated? What drives them? So those are also some of the key things which branding sort of focuses on.
Superb. Okay, let's move on to the next one, shall we? Okay, and here it is. There you go. Wow.
So the next one is, I think it's a fairly deep sort of a tip, but it is in a sense that you have to define your purpose. And in my experience, I have found purpose to be a better driver in an organization than motivation. So in the sense that you can obviously motivate your employees by saying that okay, there's going to be benefits, there's going to be higher salaries, etc. But those motivations are all short-term motivations. A longer, deeper motivation, especially in today's generation, is actually purpose. Most people today, and the younger workforce and the generation, they want to work in an organization where they feel aligned with the organization's purpose. So I'm not really just going there for a 9-to-5 job. That's really not going to satisfy me in the long run. I'm really going there because I think that I'm going to make a difference in the world, and I'm going to make a difference in the world with the organization that I'm in. So that is really the organization's purpose. And the tip really is to say that, here is a very simple model to think how you define your purpose. So it is really, and this is a fairly common model as well, that, you say that what are you really good at? Are you good in sales, marketing, developing a product? 2, what are you passionate about? And this is where I think where the emotive aspect comes about it, right? Because we're not looking at a robotic factory in that sense, right? As a brand. Otherwise, you will sort of get outdated really fast. So are you passionate about making a difference? Is it a social innovation? Is it something else, for example? And third is which is obviously very critical, is what the world needs. Is there a demand in the marketplace of what you're producing? All of these, at the intersection of it, is where you find your brand's purpose.
Wow.
That's profound, Profound, Sandeep. Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes you think. The thing is, and it's good that you mentioned this, Roy. There are a lot of companies who, when they start off, they know, this is what we are going to do. We're going to change the world, this, that, and the other. And then things take over, Then things take over, and, then people think differently, they get driven. Then, probably sometimes the money runs out, then suddenly you either, need to look for finance, or you need to, do other things. So the purpose goes, a little bit here and there. And then, it just disintegrates, because there's nothing to, unless that purpose, not only do they know it for sure, they articulate it, and, they probably read it every day to themselves, so then they know that this is why we exist. This is why we are all working together. That will, bind them like a glue, and keep everybody together. So I think that's really, really deep.
What I understand is the day-to-day, like Sandeep said, the day-to-day rigmarole will, suddenly obviate the need to protect the brand. So probably from a structural point of view in an organization, however small or big it might be, Roy, maybe it's a good idea to have somebody like a custodian of the brand, right? Like you have a custodian of your accounts and your tally. Maybe it's a good idea to in some form have a custodian of the brand so that is kept in its integrity.
So, see, in a way, what you need to think of this is that let's say, for example, in an organization, right? You have IT systems which ensure that automation is done in the right way. The
Right.
same way, you also need a system in which you are ensuring that the purpose of the organization is not lost. And it's human for it to get lost when we sort of, especially today, right? When you're sort of looking at, managing day to day, how are you going to deal with
Survival. Yeah.
survival as well.
Yeah.
But one of the ways in which this can be sort of done is through designing a culture. And a culture is really the sort of the engine which ensures that regardless of whatever happens to the organization, you grow, you scale down, you become big or you become small, your purpose remains intact. So a good culture in that sense to me is far more powerful than strategy, because strategy is something which will keep changing. But if you have defined a culture and say that, look, this is what who we are as people, and ultimately, if you see, it all boils down to a very human thing. We are talking about an organization which is made out of people. People are driven by emotions. They are not driven by mechanical things. So when people come and work together, the way they work together is what forms the culture of the organization. So if you are defining that culture, mapping it, and sort of designing it well, that will serve the organization very well over the period of years.
I see. So culture in more ways than one is the real brand bed, if I can call it that way. No? Culture.
Absolutely.
Sandeep, says something which I've been actually looking at this. What Roy said is so simple and so commonsensical, which I was just introspective when he was talking, Roy, that I was thinking that looking at all this thing happening in so many SMEs, but not seeing it. That culture leads to the brand is such a very simple thing, but yet so important.
I mean, it's not that many people, they may be doing it, unconsciously sometimes, but not consciously doing it. So I think it's a good exercise for MSMEs to, to do that. Make sure that you consciously, think in terms of, what do I stand for? What do I mean? What does my company stand for? How do others see me? And what will keep us together? So because, monetarily situation will change as it has, during the lockdown for many people, especially MSMEs. So I think that's very.
One of the ways I sort of talk about this is assuming that, especially given the current pandemic, we don't have a vaccine right now, right? So the only way in which you can safeguard yourself is by boosting your immunity, making sure your culture is your immunity of an organization.
Fantastic.
You might not have the vaccine to say that this is what we'll do, but if you've got a strong culture, you will tide this through, regardless of what.
Super point of view. Absolutely. I think more ways than one, companies who've actually built this culture-based brand before the pandemic would have actually shown the resilience and that togetherness during these times. I mean, if somebody has to do a survey or an analysis, I'm sure this will come out so well,
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great perspective.
Sandeep, let's make this a 1 hour, 5 minute show, 30 minutes too short.
I think we should probably have another extended session on this. This is really interesting. We should probably actually have another extended session on this maybe some other time. Okay. So let's move on. And Roy, here's your third one.
And the third is values. So see, the thing is, again, with most organizations, there is, if you say that, what's your mission, what's your vision, I've always found that they end up being, either PowerPoint slides or, they are posters which are kept in the reception area. There's really nothing which sort of, which people believe in that sense. Values in that sense are really your operating system. How do you react to a situation is through the kind of values that you have as an organization. And every organization, whether it has planned it or not, has values by which it operates. When you start defining your values is when you're able to control it. And values have tremendous amount of influence, right? It influences who are the people that you feel are a good fit for the company and who are the people who are not. Who are the people who get promoted, who are the people who are not, So all of those things essentially come from values. It also comes from how do you conduct your business, what kind of reputation that you have. So defining your values is something which is a very important thing that organizations, especially today, need to do now. And I think now is actually a great time for organizations, because I don't think you'll have this amount of time at any point of time in our lifetime where you have the ability to sit, introspect, and define certain things. So in a way, it is like building your foundation, and you have now the time in order to do it. So defining your values is something which I would recommend every organization to do now. And one of the ways to do it is, so there's a values workshop that I take, and these are some of the questions which allows you to create your values. So like, for example, saying what are the strengths and weaknesses as an organization, what was a critical issue that we as an organization faced, and how was it handled. So the thing is, depending upon how it has been handled also tells you a lot about shared values. And shared values is important because we are not really saying, we're not talking about a founder who will say ki, I operate on these 5 values. Ab whoever you are as people, tum log ko yahi karna hai. That's not really how it works. There is a sense of shared values which are there. People, a great organization is something in which there is a diversity of people. People might have different opinions, but they probably operate on a similar value set. So that's why finding shared values is what is critical. The second.
Wow.
Amazing, no,
Wow.
Sandeep. We started off looking at brand being related to marketing. We said it's related to sales. We spoke of the legal framework. We spoke about brand as an asset class. And here we are discussing 21 minutes into the show of brand being actually the value of a value system of an organization. People
It's an awesome perspective, because if you're, it's a very cool way of looking at the brand. As a brand is not just, people associate brand with, branding, color scheme, logo, monogram, things like that. Branding, it's like that. But the branding is as a name tag on a shirt or something like that. But it's much more than that. It's actually the stuff that holds the company together and holds the people together. Especially as you mentioned in times like this. It's very awesome. There's a comment which has come up here, and I should put that up here right now. It's beautiful. It says that somebody liked the sentence that you put together. Design a culture, and culture is the immunity of your organization. So, thank you, Upasna, for saying that. And so yes, so that's actually what the brand turns out to be. And thank you, Roy, for bringing that perspective to us. That's very, very important. So one question I had one question on this. With your permission, I'd like to ask it. You mentioned about the one way to figure out the values is to ask yourself this question, and this is the one that you said, that talk about a critical issue that the organization faced and how it was handled. Okay, so just give so that our viewers understand exactly how to go about it. Can you just give us an example of what the question is and what the answer is, and from the answer what would be the value that somebody could derive, that okay, so if this is the question, this is the answer, and therefore these are the values that we actually share. Is it possible to do that?
Yeah. So if you take, let's take a live situation right now. So critical issue is, let's take a hypothetical business. Now, the government has suddenly announced there's going to be a lockdown from tomorrow, and everything is going to be shut. The business now has to scramble to figure out how to operate in a manner in which it has never operated. So what's the first reaction that the business is going to have? Is the first reaction going to be about, and it's not like there's a right answer or a wrong answer, but it's just saying that, is the business going to be, for example, calling its customers first and saying that, look, regardless of whatever happens, don't worry, we are behind you? Or is it going to be speaking to all its employees and saying that, guys, the company will take care of you regardless of what, we're all in this together? Or, for example, it's going to say that, regardless of what happens in the lockdown, we have to make sure that our product quality does not dip or the service quality does not dip. So there are different ways in which you could answer this, but the way that you answer reveals something about you, right? So and again, like I'm saying, there's no right or wrong answer. So if you're in business with all the customers first, which means you're customer focused, which is a very good thing to do. Assuring your customers that your business is safe with us. We deliver you a product or a service, but do not worry, lockdown, no lockdown, we'll make sure that things happen. That's one kind of, so that creates a value system as well.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, I remember earlier into the lockdown, there was this letter that was written by, I think, the Uber CEO, when he had to lay off a whole lot of employees. And that letter was, doing the rounds on the internet, and it was really, almost it's a very apologetic letter, and which is full of empathy in terms of, that I really don't want to do this, but, if the company needs to survive, we really don't have too many other options. And I also read about somebody who just turned around and, called his entire team on like a video conference on Zoom and, told them that that's it, from tomorrow, nobody,
Yeah.
half of you or things like that.
Which
So,
leads me to
yeah.
say, and Roy, you're not going to hear this, okay? You're going to shut your ears, but it's only between me and Sandeep. So what I'm realizing, Sandeep, is this is the NID grad, the absolute illuminated design graduate from Ahmedabad, NID. But more importantly, it's not again about brand being a technique or a creation. It's also having internally being good. You see, you have to be a good person, a nice human being, empathetic, and that all of that will add to the brand. So obviously, I cannot be a great NID grad and be a brand success. I need to be internally empathetic to my companies, my customers, the people around me. That's what Roy signifies. Roy, you can hear us now, no problem.
So I think essentially I would think of this as that, for SMEs to think of, because we are in very interesting times right now, and I don't think this will happen. This may or may not happen again, but
Right.
this is a time of severe crisis, but it's also a time of severe change, and there are businesses who are going to be using this time to thrive. It's once everything, because things will go back to its in a certain way. How you react to this situation, the way you come out of it, is going to be determined by a whole lot of different factors. And a lot of these factors, especially for SMEs, are these simple things: your values, your purpose.
And also these are times when, if I look at the skyscrapers of Mumbai, every second flat there's a new idea being born of new entrepreneurship being born. Somebody would do a tiffin service, somebody would do something else online. So many entrepreneurs are being born. Like they say, the lockdown will give a lot of babies for sure. The lockdown is also going to give a lot of enterprises for sure.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
so lot of enterprising babies. Yeah, sure. I got that.
See, the thing is, India is a very resilient nation, right?
Yeah.
So we as Indians are able to, handle any form of situation. And if you specifically take Mumbai as a city, we are a city
Spirit of Mumbai. Yeah.
I mean, we are used to, facing floods, fire.
That's a double-edged sword, Roy. That spirit of Mumbai, okay, because it makes us practically sometimes accept anything that happens. Also,
Correct.
So anything happens, we are very resilient. Mumbai will still, go around. So sometimes the authorities also say, "Okay, spirit of Mumbai is there." So it doesn't matter if few things slip up here and there. The spirit of Mumbai will carry everyone through.
So Roy,
that's an excuse which a lot of people have about spirit of Mumbai. My point really was that the thing is that especially entrepreneurs in India, I think the entrepreneurs in India deal with the kind of situations far more than any other country. The kind of things that they have to deal with from a government perspective, market perspective. I was reading some report about the frameworks and the permission that a typical entrepreneur has to take in running any business. It's an insane number. It runs into thousands. So in spite of that, if you are able to sort of build successful businesses, I think we can sort of handle anything.
Super.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
while
Cool.
we're talking, Sandeep, we have so many comments coming up. But
Yeah,
sorry,
I know,
I got so much profoundly engrossed in what Roy was telling.
Yeah, I put them up. Yeah. Suresh, there's one for you. Yeah, I must put that up. Yeah. Okay, there's it.
Yes. So Arjun, you must look at a brand building for you too.
And Mahesh says hi. Yes, hi Mahesh.
Hi.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Upasna said
Pleasure.
this was nice. Yeah. And I think Riva also.
Viva said.
Yep.
Yuvraj said that he realized the value of brand for a startup.
Yeah, I saw that. That's
Thank you,
it's
guys.
actually so true. It's actually so true. Yeah. Survival in the
Absolutely.
pandemic. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean,
cool.
I have some 20 questions to ask you, Sandeep. I don't know which one to start off, and the time says a minute and a half to go.
No. We have the tip. We have the gift. Let's not forget. Yeah. Okay.
Roy,
Here goes.
the gift to
Here goes.
startups. Wow.
So here
Here
is a gift for Value Additions and all its members and its audience. So essentially, it's a half an hour one-to-one online session for entrepreneurs who are looking to create a new brand or looking to reinvent their brand.
Fantastic, Roy.
Okay,
Absolutely.
this is awesome. So for all you guys who are interested in this free brand evaluation, okay, it's an half an hour one-to-one online session. You need to note down this email ID. That's the email ID you need to send it. You can also leave a message in the comment box below. Okay, but in case you want to send in a little more detail, that's the email ID on screen. Send it to them. Hey Roy, am I supposed to? Am I allowed to sign up, or are we allowed to do this ourselves? You have the disclaimer that the organizers of the program, and their relatives and friends and everybody else are not permitted to participate. So.
But that was not there, right? That's not applicable, right?
That's not applicable here.
So the way I see it, Sandeep, is what Roy is given is not 30 minutes, but it's all of 1,800 seconds of pure bliss in terms of understanding brand perspective. And that's probably not only revisiting but reinventing the brand, like the right word.
No, I think that this is an awesome thing, because a lot of people will, when they realize that this branding has got that much of value, you probably end up in a situation where you will then find out at some point and at some stage you can actually monetize this whole thing. So people don't realize that the monetization factor which is there, that's something which is really awesome as far as this is concerned. And I think,
I really appreciate
if nothing else, thank you for bringing that perspective. The fact that it can be monetized, and the fact that it's something that holds you together in such difficult times. So I think that I think the key takeaways are, if nothing else, these two, and I hope the audience got the rest of it. So.
Absolutely.
So yes, here's another comment. Good one, Sandeep. Sandeep didn't do anything enlightening. All the enlightening was done by Roy.
All the enlightening is Suresh. I can see the halo on top of that.
There you go, Menonji. Sandeep. Hi, Sandesh. How are you? Yeah.
Hi, very nice. So Roy, I mean, are you sure, Sandeep, we can't take this for 30 minutes more? Yeah, I mean, was it?
No, we can't take this for 30 minutes.
We can't be slaves for time. So I know how busy Roy is. How sustained Roy is, how much he consumes in the brand that he builds, I know for a fact. And him giving that 30-minute to entrepreneurs is absolutely, Roy, very sweet of you. Absolutely. Thank you. I exactly know how much you are having time constraints by giving 13 minutes and not like just word of. Absolutely. Words.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Suresh. And I just click on end broadcast. You guys just hang around here. Don't disappear. Okay.
Feeling happened, Roy. Thank you so much. Let it happen with that thing of being incomplete.